I want to talk about Love Scout episode 12, and I want to do a review of this K drama as a whole, how it actually really surprised me because I really wasn't expecting much for the first quarter of 2025. I really did not expect to be so enamored and moved by this very quietly beautiful show. Hi, I'm Monique. I am the host of Off by Purple Art podcast, where I talk to you about K dramas and C dramas and BTS and so much more. Love Scout episode 12 concluded today. Yeah, I'll be most likely going into some spoilers, and I just want to talk about the show as a whole. I think as a whole, this show is absolutely for viewers that love more mature K dramas who don't necessarily want to see a messy love triangle, who don't want to see a bunch of miscommunication tropes. I found one of the most refreshing things about the show is how frank a lot of the conversations are and how the characters really didn't unnecessarily create contrivance of misunderstandings and then not talking things out and communicating in a healthy, productive way to move the story along. I feel like overall the show was really well paced. I really enjoyed the chemistry. I wish for episode 12 in particular they leaned into the more fiery, passionate part, but I understand with most K dramas, the episode 12 is supposed to be a wrap up concluding the story, and it's just supposed to emanate softness and warmth and the couple just being happy in their bliss. Technically, for a romance in media, for it to be considered a romance, the two main leads, they have to be together in the end. There has to be the happy ending for it technically to be a romance, and this show did that. But yeah, I wanted to see that same fiery passion that they had in all those episodes that kind of built up to them realizing their feelings for one another. But I think the two leads, their chemistry was strong throughout. I actually really liked Jimin's performance. She was really great in like the little micro subtle expressions on her faces, and I really enjoyed episode 12 in that she and the character Mrs. Kang got her happy ending, and she was able to start afresh and anew without any bitterness in her heart. Her main antagonist and the rival throughout the show, Mrs. Kim, and her despicable behavior and her resentment, I thought it was interesting that they wrapped it up really quickly because to me, they could have wrapped that up in episode 11, and episode 12 by proxy could have been a little bit shorter, but there's things, technicalities as far as run times for advertisers that are needed when these shows go to order. But I was kind of surprised about how quickly they kind of resolved all that tension, and her taking over the company and her being smug and her getting all those shots in and Mrs. Kang only for like literally like 2 minutes later for her to be investigated. I just thought that was funny, and to have the whistle blown on her was just really satisfying. But I just wish we could have had a little bit more of that because she was such a prominent antagonist throughout the entirety of the show. But I guess at the same time, most viewers wouldn't want the negativity to bog down the final episode. Most people, when they're watching a romance, they just want to get the happy ending and get the happy couple, and they don't want really too much to overshadow that. So I can understand that choice, but that's just my own personal feel. I really did not like CEO Wu, and I really didn't care for his redemption arc. I don't really give a good goddamn that in the 11th hour he finally decided to be a goddamn father. I don't. And you can say and chalk it up to his grief over the passing of his eldest son, and that's fine. But I just thought the show made it abundantly clear how callous and calculating and cold and manipulative he was throughout the entire journey of the show. So it really didn't hit the emotional resonant punch that I think the writers thought it would, with him finally kind of reconnecting with director Wu there. And I felt nothing for him. I thought the father was a POS, and I wanted him off my screen. And the way he treated Mrs. Kang in particular in that little dinner party in front of his colleagues, to dress her down and to essentially put her into a corner to say to stop acting out, I control you, I own peoples, and I will bring you down if you continue to act out of line. To me, his behavior in that, literally, I wasn't going to believe any redemption arc with him. They could have kept him a villain all the way through like they did with Mrs. Kim. She was a bitter shrew and he was just as bitter of a shrew. And I just didn't care for him. Kudos to the actors for their portrayal as the antagonist, but his little redemption in the 11th hour, I didn't buy into it. Whatever. As far as the second couple, I thought they were cute, but honestly, they could have given them a little bit more build up. And it's kind of annoying that them finally realizing their feelings and coming together was through the use of a fortune teller. I guess because they were so offbeat and quirky in their little secondary romance, I guess on some level it kind of makes sense that it would be a fortune teller that they stumbled upon randomly to get them to both get their heads out their butts and to get on the same page. But I was like, really? Anyway, but the main star of the shows, Eunho and Mrs. Kang and Byul, I love that little trio, that little family dynamic. That's what I was looking for. And considering how dark and bleak everything looked in Byul's life at the beginning of the show, just how devastated Eunho was, the fact that his career was in jeopardy because he was so concerned about his daughter's mental health, and the pictures that she would draw would be so devoid of color and life because she was going through her depression, and just everything was just so unsettled and scary with her mom exiting out of her life early on, and just, Eunho struggling under the weight of parenthood and having to come and meet the challenge of being that father figure, and also having to have that maternal love that is embedded into his relationship, and have that all come together in the final episode and see their family home being so beautiful and bright with color, seeing all the pictures that Byul has created full of life, and seeing how much Mrs. Kang's face was plastered all over without explicitly telling us that they're going to get married and live happily ever after. You could already see that through the actions. The show didn't have to tell us. They showed us quite clearly how integral she is into that family unit. And for Byul to actually say, "I'm so happy," honestly, that brought tears to my eyes. That little girl, she is full of so much charm and wit, and her portrayal of Byul, phenomenal. And just having all three of them kind of jump into the bed together after smearing cake on their face, celebrating Eunho's new position, everything about that was just so beautiful and touching. Like, it actually does kind of make me a little emotional. I was like, this is what I was looking for in the show, and I'm so happy that we got that conclusion. And pretty much all of her co-workers wanting to join Mrs. Kang in her new journey, and Byul being able to give the new company that new perspective and freshness with We Company. As basic as a title that is, it really does make sense, and what the show was trying to build as far as Mrs. Kang building community and not being so insular and feeling that she has to have the entire weight of everything on her shoulders, and that she can ask for help, she can build friendships, she can build community, and she doesn't have to continue to isolate herself and feel that everything is on her and on her alone. But I still love that she had her worth ethic, and man, oh man, that cream pantsuit, Jesus, I would wear that in a hot second. But overall, I enjoyed my journey with Love Scout. Let me know, how did you feel? Did you enjoy the conclusion of Love Scout? As I said, I had my quibbles here and there with the show. I think I mentioned this in a prior podcast about the whole childhood connection, but barring that and kind of how quickly they tidied up all the antagonist storylines with a bow, I really enjoyed this show, and I think it is absolutely for those who are not looking for an overwhelming drama that's full of unnecessary angst. I think the show just has such a feel-good mentality to it, and it was like a really great way to kick off January and February. And I think episode 12 was a really great compliment to the fact that we're just off the heels of Valentine's Day. I just think it's just a lovely show, and it just gave me the warm feels for the most part, and I enjoyed my time with it. So let me know your thoughts if you're watching the YouTube format of this podcast. down in the comment section. If you're listening via Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well, feel free to interact with those platforms. I love to encourage communication and people getting into healthy dialogue about the medias that we consume, because it is fun for me. Take care till next one.